Imagine waking up one day and realizing no one is coming to push you forward. No applause, no encouragement, no reassurance, just silence. Most people fear this moment because we are conditioned to move with support, to grow with validation, to act when someone believes in us. But what happens when belief is absent, when your phone is quiet, when your friends are distracted, when your family does not understand your vision? This is where most people stop. But this is also where the Stoic begins. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he often reminded himself that he stood alone in responsibility. Epictetus was born a slave, yet he learned that freedom begins when you stop waiting for rescue. Seneca wrote that the man who depends on the crowd for strength will always be weak when the crowd disappears. The Stoics understood a brutal truth. If you cannot walk alone, you cannot truly lead yourself. Moving forward without support is not a punishment. It is a test of internal power. Most people only act when they feel motivated. The Stoic acts because it is necessary. Motivation is emotional, discipline is structural, and structure does not collapse when feelings change. When no one stands by your side, something powerful happens. You are forced to confront your own mind. No distractions, no external praise, no borrowed confidence, only you. And for many, that is terrifying, because silence amplifies doubt. You begin to hear thoughts like, what if I fail? What if this is pointless? What if no one ever notices? But here is what the Stoics practiced. They separated what they could control from what they could not. You cannot control who supports you. You cannot control who believes in you. You cannot control who walks away. But you can control whether you take the next step, the next workout, the next application, the next skill practiced in private. Forward movement does not require witnesses. It requires decision. Imagine climbing a mountain alone. There is no cheering at each step, no crowd celebrating your progress. Only wind, only effort, only your breath. But every step still counts. Progress does not lose value because it is unseen. In fact, unseen progress builds the strongest character, because when no one is watching, your choices reveal your true discipline. Most people need accountability from others. The Stoic builds accountability within. Ask yourself this: if no one praised you for a year, would you still improve? If no one noticed your effort, would you still train? If no one clapped for your growth, would you continue? That is the difference between dependence and mastery. To move forward alone, you must shift your identity. Stop seeing yourself as someone who needs support. Start seeing yourself as someone who creates it internally. Your standards become your coach. Your goals become your accountability. Your discipline becomes your companion. When loneliness appears, do not interpret it as abandonment. Interpret it as sharpening. Steel is forged alone in fire. The Stoic does not wait for company to begin the journey. He begins, and company may follow later. But whether they do or not is irrelevant, because forward is forward. In the next part, you will learn the first two Stoic principles that allow you to keep moving, even when encouragement disappears and doubt grows louder. Before you can move forward alone, you must understand something uncomfortable. Loneliness does not weaken you. Your interpretation of it does. Most people do not stop because they lack ability. They stop because they feel unsupported. They confuse isolation with incapability. But the Stoics trained themselves to see isolation differently. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that even as emperor, he stood alone in decision. No one could think for him. No one could discipline his mind for him. No one could carry his responsibility. And that realization did not depress him. It strengthened him. Principle 1. Detach from the need for external validation. When you depend on encouragement, your progress becomes unstable. If people cheer, you move. If people doubt, you hesitate. If people ignore you, you slow down. That is not strength, that is emotional dependence. Epictetus taught that if you seek approval outside yourself, you hand over control of your peace. The same applies to progress. If you require applause to act, your discipline is fragile. Imagine planting a tree. You water it daily, you protect it from wind, you nourish the soil. But no one compliments the seed. No one celebrates the roots growing underground. Still, growth happens. Real progress is invisible at first. When you move forward alone, you are in the root-building phase. No validation, no spotlight, no recognition, just repetition. This is where identity shifts. You stop asking, "Does anyone see my effort?" You start asking, "Did I meet my standard today?" Your standard becomes internal, not emotional, not social, not reactive, internal. To cultivate this, create non-negotiables. Train whether you feel motivated or not. Study whether anyone notices or not. Work whether encouragement exists or not. Do not tie action to mood. Tie action to principle. Because principles do not fluctuate. When validation disappears and you continue anyway, something powerful happens. You begin trusting yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of independence. Principle 2. Reduce life to the next controllable step. When you are alone, the future can feel overwhelming. No support, no reassurance, no guarantee of success. The mind begins to magnify uncertainty. What if this fails? What if I waste years? What if I end up alone forever? The Stoics had a solution for this. Narrow your focus. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what is in front of you with precision and calm. Not 10 years from now, not the entire mountain, just the next step." Isolation becomes unbearable when you try to solve your entire life at once. It becomes manageable when you focus on today's action. If you are building a career alone, focus on one skill improved today. If you are training your body alone, focus on one workout completed today. If you are healing emotionally alone, focus on one disciplined choice today. Forward motion is not dramatic, it is incremental. Picture walking through fog. You cannot see miles ahead, but you can see one step. Take it. Then another appears. Take that. Loneliness feels heavy because the mind wants guarantees, but guarantees are outside your control. Effort is not. The Stoics did not promise certainty. They promised resilience. When you reduce your focus to controllable actions, anxiety shrinks. You stop obsessing over who is absent. You start strengthening who is present, yourself. And something subtle shifts. You begin to feel less like someone abandoned, and more like someone training. Training alone builds a different kind of confidence. Quiet confidence. Not loud, not boastful, not dependent, but grounded. When you survive weeks, months, even years of self-directed movement without applause, your internal foundation hardens. You realize something liberating. You do not need permission to grow. You do not need witnesses to improve. You do not need emotional support to act. Support is valuable, but it is not required. And once you understand that, loneliness loses its power over you. In the next part, you will learn the deeper mental discipline that transforms isolation into advantage, and why those who master solitude often become unstoppable. There comes a point in solitude where the silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling sharp. This is the turning point. Most people experience isolation and immediately try to escape it. They distract themselves, they chase noise, they lower their standards just to feel connected. But the Stoics did the opposite. They trained in solitude. Not because they hated people, but because they understood something dangerous about constant companionship. It can hide your weaknesses. When you are always surrounded, you can borrow confidence. You can borrow clarity. You can borrow motivation. But when you are alone, there is no one to borrow from. You meet yourself fully, and that confrontation is uncomfortable. Principle 3. Use solitude as a mirror, not a prison. When you are alone, your flaws become louder. Your procrastination, your excuses, your fears, your insecurities. There is no distraction to mute them. This is why many people avoid being alone. But Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, a journal never meant to be read by the world, because he used solitude to examine his own mind. He did not run from his thoughts. He refined them. When you move forward alone, solitude becomes a mirror. It shows you where you are weak. It reveals where your discipline collapses. It exposes where your standards are inconsistent. And that exposure is not meant to shame you. It is meant to strengthen you. Imagine training in a quiet gym at 5 a.m. No music loud enough to distract. No friends to impress. No one watching your performance. Every rep reveals truth. Either you push through discomfort, or you quit. There is no audience to deceive. Solitude removes illusion, and illusion is the enemy of growth. If you can master yourself in isolation, you become dangerous in public. Because your strength was built privately. To use solitude properly, you must stop labeling it as loneliness. Call it sharpening, call it preparation, call it mental conditioning. Instead of saying, I'm alone, say, I'm refining. That mental shift changes everything. Principle 4. Build internal dialogue that commands action. When no one is by your side, your inner voice becomes your leader. And if that voice is weak, you will drift. Most people speak to themselves in doubt. This is too hard. I can't keep doing this. What's the point? The Stoics practiced disciplined internal speech. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by the opinions we hold about them. Your inner dialogue is an opinion about yourself. If your inner voice constantly questions your capability, forward movement becomes heavy. But if your inner voice commands discipline, isolation becomes manageable. Instead of asking, why am I alone? Ask, what must be done today? Instead of saying, this is unfair, say, this is training. Instead of thinking, no one believes in me, think, I believe in the standard I've set. Your inner language must become firm, not emotional, not dramatic, clear, direct, controlled. Imagine a commander giving instructions, short, precise, unshaken. That is how you must speak to yourself. Get up. Complete the task. Do not negotiate with comfort. Finish what you started. When you repeat disciplined thoughts daily, your brain adapts. Your identity shifts from someone seeking support to someone generating momentum. And momentum is powerful, because once you build it internally, it becomes self-sustaining. This is why those who grow alone often move differently later in life. They are less reactive, less needy, less emotionally unstable, because they already survived silence. They already built confidence without witnesses. They already proved to themselves that progress does not require applause, and that kind of proof cannot be taken away. When storms come, they do not panic. They have endured worse, quietly. When criticism appears, they do not collapse. They built strength without validation. When opportunities arise, they do not hesitate. They trust their training. Solitude, when mastered, creates unshakable self-reliance, and self-reliance creates freedom. In the final part, you will understand how to turn this self-reliance into long-term momentum, and why those who learn to walk alone often end up leading others without even trying. Now understand this clearly. Walking alone is not the final destination. It is the transformation phase. Most people believe that if they endure isolation long enough, eventually the world will reward them with support. But that is the wrong mindset. The reward is not support. The reward is self-command. When you learn to move forward without encouragement, something irreversible happens. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop depending on emotional reassurance. You become decisive. Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Notice the simplicity, no debate, no overthinking, no delay, action. When you train yourself to move without witnesses, you build momentum that does not require supervision, and momentum creates gravity. Here is the paradox. When you no longer need people beside you to move forward, people begin gravitating toward you. Why? Because independence is rare. Most individuals are emotionally dependent on validation, companionship, or constant feedback. When someone sees a person disciplined in silence, consistent without praise, calm without reassurance, it stands out. You do not chase support. Support notices you, but this must never become your goal. If you endure solitude only to attract admiration, you are still dependent. The Stoic path is different. You move forward because forward is your duty. You train because weakness is unacceptable to you. You build because stagnation violates your standards. Whether anyone joins is irrelevant. Picture a man walking through a desert. No crowd, no shortcuts, no shade. Step by step, he advances. At first, it looks lonely, but over time, he becomes conditioned. His endurance increases, his mental resistance sharpens, his tolerance for discomfort expands. By the time others attempt the same journey, he is already miles ahead. Not because he had more help, because he started without it. This is the advantage of learning to walk alone. You build depth, and depth creates authority. When challenges arise, you do not panic. You have already trained without comfort. When people doubt you, you do not crumble. You have already proven yourself in silence. When support finally appears, you appreciate it, but you do not rely on it. That is strength. The Stoics never promised an easy road. They promised resilience. They promised that the only thing truly yours is your mind, your discipline, your choices. Everything else can leave. People can leave. Encouragement can disappear. Circumstances can shift. But if your internal structure is solid, you remain steady. So the next time you feel alone in your journey, do not interpret it as abandonment. Interpret it as elevation. Life is testing whether you can carry yourself, if you can move forward without applause, if you can improve without recognition, if you can endure without reassurance, then you are building something unbreakable. And unbreakable people do not beg for company. They attract respect. If this message strengthened your mindset, write in the comments, "I move forward alone." Subscribe to Quiet Stoic for more discipline-driven wisdom rooted in Stoic philosophy, where strength is silent, growth is private, and power begins within. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone to walk beside you is the moment you become capable of leading yourself anywhere.